So you're a Delta, 13 levels. We met at UCF. And I think that, honestly, the reason why I wanted to have you on this podcast is because I feel like you have a very interesting perspective on life, and you seem so certain about what you believe in that you're not afraid to tell other people, this is how I feel, this is what I think. And I feel like that's so brave and courageous. And so I just wanted to have like a really in-depth conversation with you.
Well, I really appreciate that, and I want to hold. I have something to respond to that, but I think I want to hold it until we get more into like background and story and stuff like that. But I do appreciate that, and I'm really happy to, be here. I like we talked about before offline. I just love. I'm a curious person. I love having like stimulating conversation because I'm always. I can never not look at situations and think, what can I learn here? What can I take away from this? Is there something to be gleaned here? You know what I mean? I always have really held true to everything happens for a reason. So, yeah.
And where do you think that comes from?
I really wish I knew.
Okay.
And maybe one day I'll figure it out,
Like
but
upbringing, like
yeah.
siblings.
I mean, I know it definitely comes from upbringing, but like kind of again how I talked to you offline about how the fact that my sister and I, we have the same parents, we grew up in the same household, but we're very different. And I am a person.
I would love for you to elaborate on the difference because I feel like it's super self-aware.
Okay. Well, my synopsis of the difference is that, she's a person who asks for forgiveness. I mean, for forgiveness, and I ask for permission. And so we're different in that way. And sometimes her way, I feel like, is like, oh, I wish I had more gumption like she does. To just kind of say, you know what, I'm doing it. Oh well. And then some. There are obviously a lot of situations where it's like she wished she had the tact that I have to be able to say, okay, I'm not going to do that. Let me clear that with somebody first, or let me think about this first, or, whatever. But it's a good balance between us two.
Yeah, it's a good balance.
Definitely a little yin and yang going on. But yeah, I think that maybe where I get that kind of perspective or resolve. I really have been studying Enneagrams, and I think I told you this a couple months ago.
Okay.
And I haven't, been looking into it as much as I did when I first told you about
What's
it.
your Enneagram?
I'm a 1.
You're
so
1.
that's a perfectionist / reformer, but I resonate a lot more with the perfectionist title because I don't really like to reform things. At least not in that type. Yeah, no, that's not really me.
So maybe for the people who don't really know what's an Enneagram, like, what is Enneagram?
So the premise is that everybody on this planet would fall into one of 9 different personality types. And so, of course, let's say you and I are both 1s. That doesn't mean we think the same about every single thing, but because of course there could be variations, but you just are fundamentally, we have kind of the same motivations, the same views about where things may come from or how we see things prospectively and things like that. But excuse me, everybody falls under these one of these 9 types. And basically the premise is that in your formative years, like, somewhere maybe between anywhere from 3 to maybe like teenager, whatever, something happens to you, you respond to that thing, and it begins to like shape your personality type.
Okay.
So whether you respond to it by, oh, I'm going to retreat and ignore this, or I pretend like it didn't happen, or whether you respond to it like, over an emotional response that's not really, adequate for the event or the thing that happened, whatever it is, these like responses kind of begin to shape your personality type. And then it kind of goes further to say that, well, the book particularly that I was like reading, it kind of goes further to say that throughout our lives, we also start to try to hide that person who we are because we feel like, oh, it's not acceptable, or people might not love this part of me or whatever. And the book kind of that particular book would just kind of encourage you to embrace that part of you, but just live it in a healthier way. Like there can be healthy versions of every Enneagram number. Like people might look at some better than others. There is no one that's better than others, especially if you're unhealthy. If I'm an unhealthy 1, I'm no better than a healthy 6 or whoever. So, but I just brought that up only to say that I feel like if going back to the root of your question, which is where do I think this kind of everything happens for a reason and stuff like that comes from, I think maybe it's that, like some like events in like my formative years, whatever, and my responses to them and the way that I've like, processed them or whatnot, maybe have, make me think about things, like try to think of things with that type of perspective.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And as you're talking, I'm wondering, because you're pretty much saying that the way that we show up now in later life is due to a certain period of time in our early childhood where we responded to something. And in my mind, I'm wondering if it could equally be responding to positive things versus responding to maybe like trauma, whether it's lower T trauma or capital T trauma. And I'm realizing the factuality of that based off of like my upbringing and my parents and my mom and dad, who were always positive, and they never showed us any like the angry side or the frustrated side or the stress side. We only saw positive. And what they would do is they would just go into their, like if any of them are dealing with that, they go into their separate spaces and deal with it on their own, so that when they come back to us, like they are positive and genuinely, like they've in a sense cracked the code of being able to be resilient about dealing with your emotions and managing them, but they managed it solo. And so the way that it shows up for me now is like I'm all about positivity, and it's hard for me to narrow in on those negative emotions, and that's probably why I show up the way that I show up. So it's really interesting that you brought that up.
I want to counter that with just asking, don't you think that openly processing negative emotions is a part of being a human being and something that adults need to also be equipped to know how to do? So I guess I'm just trying to figure out, what is your outlook or process now, as an adult, having had that as your perspective as an upbringing, because of course I obviously know as a parent, I don't want my kid to ever see the bad part. But I do think it's important for my son to see me cry sometimes or get frustrated, because those are normal human emotions, and I need to show him the right way to deal with it, not to condition him to think that it needs to be hidden. Is something wrong with this negative emotion, so it needs to be private?
Yeah.
Just because it's not smiles. So I'm just curious, I guess your thoughts or do you feel like, I know you said you show up positively, but do you feel like that presents issues for you being able to like connect with people when things are not positive, I guess?
Yeah, I would say that is one of my greatest flaws that I'm working on, is being able to show up in those moments when there's just an overflow of negative emotions. And it's not necessarily to say that I don't feel the emotions. And what I'm trying to say is it's normal to feel the entire range of emotions. I think just for me, the way that I approach it is, and I'm still working on this, but I approach it in the idea that if something goes wrong, then instead of focusing on how I feel about it, I'm focused on the solution to the problem, because I know that if I solve the problem, then it's going to make me feel better. And so for me, it's kind of like a shortcut to productivity, where it's like, I personally, there's certain moments where it's okay to really sit in that emotion and sit in it. But for me, a lot of times how I navigate is I'm just going to bypass however I'm feeling. I'm going to go to the gym, whether I feel happy or sad or depressed or anxious. But I know I still need to go to the gym. So it's a way that has worked for me so far, but it's something that I'm still striving for, that balance.
Yeah, no, I understand that for sure. I'm actually reading a book now, and it explores something that I'm exploring for myself personally called, a part of the book is exploring your protective self. And as you were speaking, it reminded me of that part of the book when they explore your protective self, which is basically like a you that comes in place when there's a core wound that's involved. So whether that's trauma, whatever, and yeah, like this obviously, just it's not about, I'm not trying to, I'm definitely not a therapist, so I'm not I'm not trying to like, go too deep or anything like that. But I find that, I feel like we all not even knowingly sometimes like really be like living in our protective selves.
Yeah.
Because, what you, like you just said, it's not that you don't feel this feeling, but you're like, okay, well, how do I get, I'm gonna focus on the solution. But that's not addressing the core wound.
Yeah.
It's just addressing the protection.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's a work in progress.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
work
yeah,
in
yeah. And I'm
progress.
not saying, and I'm saying I'm reading the book because I do it too.
Yeah.
You know, in a different way, but same issue.
Yeah.
So I'm not picking on you or anything like that. But I didn't even realize until kind of reading that book and diving into that just philosophy that, oh wow, like we do, and our protective self is very big and strong. Like it tells us a whole bunch. Oh no, you're not gonna let people play with you, or oh no, you're not gonna do this. And it's like that's not it's not wrong. It's just not 100% true either. It's
Right.
kind of like getting into like the faith talk that I kind of started with you offline. Like when you talk about people say, oh, I don't know if it's like the enemy talking to me or whatever. Well, a good way to know it is like God is not going to ever tell you what's not 100% true. A lot of times it's easy to listen to the voice of the enemy because it's almost true. It's like, yeah, that almost sounds right, but this one thing, you know what I mean?
Right.
And that gets tricky too. But one thing I wish the parents would have said is that stop saying I can't wait till I grow up. Yes, you can wait because it's rough out here.
You can wait. You can wait.
Yes.
Okay, so with all that you were going through in your childhood and learning about yourself, you mentioned being self-aware, and I think that a lot of times once people go off to college, that's their first opportunity to be more self-aware of who they are as an individual in this sea of strangers where you have to kind of navigate that whole situation. So we're talking about UCF and that experience, and I believe that you majored in journalism.
Yes.
So I'm curious to understand, and before I go into that, like to give you an idea of why I'm saying that or I'm asking that, is because for me, when I first got into college, I immediately went towards psychology. And I was like, I love to understand people. I love to understand why they do what they do. And then I talked to my uncle, and I was probably in psychology for like a year and a half.
Is that how y'all cross paths?
Sakina?
Yeah.
AK Psy.
Okay.
So it was business, which is interesting, even though we both did psychology.
Yeah.
But it was because
I always
Psy.
thought it was AK Psy, but then I never knew you started in psych.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, maybe it was that. Okay.
Yeah. So I started in psychology, and I did interpersonal communications as a minor.
I started in psych too.
Yeah. So, okay, that's perfect. Look at that commonalities. But the reason why I switched to economics and switching to the business side is because I spoke to my uncle, and he was like, unless you want to be a psychiatrist or a psychologist, you're not going to make any money in psychology. But deep down, that was my first choice. That's what I wanted to study. And I feel like I'm making the loop back now where it's like, it feels like psychology in a sense.
Yeah.
Even though I took a detour because it was a close family friend or someone close saying, hey, maybe you should go there. And I take that path. And then maybe I feel like a little discontent and I come back to my roots.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to hear, you said that you started in psychology, then you moved into journalism. I'd love to hear how you bridge that gap and then bridging it into, well, let's start there. Psychology and journalism.
Well, I mean.
And UCF, the UCF experience.
So to your point about just your uncle and like, kind of getting away from what you might have wanted. I mean, I love communications. But a lot of what I do in communications is about human behavior, which is what psychology is, based in. So a lot of things I learned in that year and a half I was in as a psych major, I still apply today. And it makes me a better publicist. It makes me better in the field that I'm in because you have to understand and process and think about human behavior, connection, all stuff like that every day. So to the point of like those things that you want, but you may move in a different direction, but they end up coming back. That still has come back to me as well. But with UCF and psychology, when I was in high school, and maybe even before then, but definitely I can remember it for sure when I was in high school, I was always told two things. Oh, you're so easy to talk to, and oh, you're so good with sports. And both of them were things that I, loved. The sports comment was even before high school, but definitely like, of course, when you're at that point, you're about to make a choice for college and stuff like that. You're trying to figure out who am I? I'm going to be an adult, all these major decisions you think you have to make. And you're a baby, you're 18, like relax. But, I was always told those two things. And I just felt like, well, I really like helping people and I want to help people. And at this time, I'm speaking as like more of my 16, 17-year-old self. I'm like, I love sports. I love, like watching coverage and the reporting and all stuff like that. But I can never like make it to ESPN. Like I don't know anybody who works there, so like I could, how would I ever even do something like that? So I chose the other road. I'm like, I could, be in psychology. I love talking to people. People always say it's so easy to talk to me. And, I love the concept of psychology. In high school, I took AP Psych and I was really good at it. So, so I was like, yeah, this seems like the right choice. But that fire never died, right? So I'm still going, now I'm in college and I'm still, talking to people, talking sports to people, and just like watching games and watching coverage all the time. And I still always was like, oh man, that would just be so awesome if I could do that. And then after the 50 billionth time of me saying to myself, but you never, like, how can you're not going to make it to ESPN. You don't even know anybody who like works in that space. After saying that for so many times, I was just like, I guess one day, and I used to tell this story and say, oh, I just said to myself, but now that I'm older, I understand, like, this is the Holy Spirit saying back to me, like, why can't you meet this person that you claim you don't know? I was like,
Removing those self-limiting beliefs.
yeah, because I'm just like, I guess you're right. I could.
This is you talking to yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then I was
That's
like,
self-talk, positive self-talk.
And it was so needed. And after that day, I was just like, yeah, that's true. And so I went from there. I was like, okay, I went to like in the school communications. I figured out how do I apply, because you have to apply for UCF's journalism program. And I got in and I left psych and I never really looked back. It was a rigorous program, a really great program, honestly. UCF's Nicholson School of Communications is like really great. And I'm sure it's improved even more since I've been there. But really great experience. And then, I don't want to get too far ahead, but, went into journalism from there before I made my transition, which maybe I'm sure we'll get to in a second. But UCF experience was great.
Well, before we jump into the UCF experience, I'm curious to hear about maybe some of the most everlasting principles you learned from those foundational journalism classes. Like, what were the things that you learned, and it was just like a light bulb went off in your head? It's like the nuggets of journalism that you learned in that moment.
One thing I learned was being bold and being curious. For sure, as a journalist, you have to be curious. You have to be bold, and I was always a person with a strong work ethic. But being accurate, like a lot of the lay person may not like look at certain details or certain like terminology or anything and like think to dig deeper and say, well, what is that exactly? Or what does that exactly mean? They may just say, oh, well, that's what the official said, so whatever. But to be a journalist, to be in communications, because even though I'm not a journalist anymore, I still always say I'm a journalist at heart. But even though I'm in PR now, you still have to do that same thing. The technicalities of the words that you use, or the things that are said to you, that it all matters. So being able to be bold enough to ask that question, what does this mean? Even if I am talking to the police chief of XYZ city, you're not above. What does this mean? And being curious, why are we doing this? You want me to be so excited about this announcement, but why? Who does it impact besides the people that you wanted to impact? What is
it's like you're always peeking behind the curtain, or like trying to understand how they did that magic trick.
Truly.
Yeah.
Truly. And that's what it's all about. And having all those experiences, not only like from J school, but also just being a real reporter in the field and stuff, it helps me so much in my job now, because I understand what reporters are thinking, what's out of bounds, what's in bounds. That's one of the main things I tell like my clients. We talk about athletes or just anything that, is media involved, having a publicist who has been a journalist is such an advantage, because I understand what is fair to ask, what is fair game, what is how we can, what you can run with and what you can't. What are real journalistic ethics, and what is just, something that a tactic they're trying to pull to get you to answer their question. So, that's definitely been a plus. And those are things that I take in my life, like, hey, I'll make the call. I will call. I will speak up. Mm-hmm. I will say, it's a level of, tact that you kind of learn and being in communications that I feel like is very transferable to just life.
Yeah. And I'm curious, because in a position like that, it seems that you kind of have to be your client's defendant and also like help them with their brand image, and maybe they struggle to communicate what they believe about themselves or what their value is. Mm-hmm. And then you're serving as a translator to say, okay, you care about the kids, so let's put on this event. Or maybe public has this false perception of you. Let's figure out how you actually feel and be able to bridge that gap.
Yeah, I love something that when we spoke a few months ago, that we kind of came up with, and I still have this in my head now. It's a lawyer's job to defend you in the court of law. It's a publicist's job to defend you in the court of public opinion. It's
you snap.
That's
you
it.
snap.
That,
you snap.
that is just that is just the thing.
You
so
snap.
don't tell me where the bodies are buried, because if they call me in,
I ain't gonna lie for you.
Privilege. I am not lying for you.
I am not gonna lie for you.
Don't tell me that part. You may have to tell me, oh, okay, I got a baby mom on the side. Okay, I might be able to keep that part under wraps. That's not a crime. I just try not to tell your new girlfriend.
Right.
But I don't tell me.
Is that where I'm not hiding my kid from the world? I'm hiding the world from my kid.
Oh, poor Drake. Those type of things. And even then, as a woman, I'm like, it's still my own morals, right? Mm-hmm. Like, being in that athlete world, it could be like sticky because, of course, it's the flashiness, is, the access, and there's so many, like, the drama that can happen. And it's like, as a woman, it just morality. I don't want to ever, like, I know what it's like to be, a mom, and I just never want to get caught in like super sticky situations if I could avoid it. But again, those are things that maybe we may have some moral issues, but we don't have any criminal issues, so that'd be fine.
Right.
Anything criminal, you gotta take to your attorney, But truth be told, yes, it's my job to sit there and think about how do we not only so much of what publicists and PR professionals do, people think is, oh, how do you spin a story or how do you lie for them? No, it's not about that. It's how do I proactively tell the truth? Mm. How do I tell your truth proactively so I don't have to lie? Right? Because if I'm continuously telling your truth, if I'm saying, to your point, you have a passion for children and you want to give back to the youth, so you do XYZ camp or XYZ foundation, and we're proactively doing that from the jump, from the time you're drafted or whatever. Well, when your name comes up in, this blog because you're supposed to be, having some issue with this girl, or a blog because somebody said your nudes got leaked, whatever. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What the public already knows about you is so much louder than this little blog or just the little internet trolls or whatever that's happening for this little 24-hour news cycle. That's not going to tear you down. But if we know zero about you, then we're going to run with this. We're making our own opinions. We don't have anything else to go with to say, this might not be true, or, there's no benefit of the doubt to give you. And so that's like one of the chief things that is always on my mind, top of mind. How do we tell your truth so that if there are lies, if there are rumors, if there is mud in the water, whatever, that people walk away understanding or walk away feeling like they know better.
Right. And I bet, like, I bet that it's tough. It's tough to be able to fight off all of the onslaught that's happening from the public and the court of public opinion when you constantly have to shift because you're lying. Versus when you have the truth, it's like, I'm not going to waver off of this. This is my pillar. This is my foundation. I'm telling you the truth, so I don't. So,
exactly. So
you're able to like swat the things off and be like, yeah, that's
absolutely
false, and this is the truth. Yeah.
And there are some, people. There are definitely some people out there that we've all seen instances of celebs, and they're like, oh, where's their PR person? You might think that. Yeah. But I never, ever, ever want somebody to think that about me.
Yeah.
Like, if I have you as a client and people are constantly saying, oh, well, who's your publicist? I'm like, oof, we might have to talk. Yeah. Because you're not listening. Yeah. And if you know better than me, then do better without me.
Yeah. Okay. So we were talking about
yes. I want
reputation management with the clients.
That's the big thing.
Yes. One of the things that we talked about last time we spoke was around, like you were saying, where the athletes or the public figures that you work with, they don't listen to you, or they think that they know better, or they rather do it their way. And so I'm curious to understand, what are like as a new athlete, like someone who just came up into the league and they're looking for a PR person, what are the things that they should be looking for as far as that person having their back and having their best interest?
Sure. So first, I want to clarify and saying that no, I didn't mean that to say that my clients will listen to me, because they do. If you're not listening to me, we can't work, because it's my reputation I'm managing as well as yours. Right. So if you're not if you're constantly thinking that I give you counsel on this and then you're gonna do something totally different and then you expect me to clean up the mess, we can't. Yeah. I don't ever want. I always pray, God, don't ever let me be so tied to a retainer that I would just allow somebody to continue to mess up my reputation just because I need the money or something. Right. No.
Yeah. And speaking of reputation, that's actually one of my favorite quotes. So ever since like middle school, high school, my favorite quote was, "Your reputation is your most important asset.
Absolutely.
Protect it always."
And to your question about new athletes, that's what somebody should be telling them. They think that because, and don't get me wrong, we all need money. I'm not downplaying that, and we all want nice things. You know, you want to make security, generational wealth, all those things. Great. We love to see it. But your reputation is much more important and valuable, and it's going to buy you more than what you think you're going to get from getting that new little car off the lot. Because when you're only going to be playing this sport for a quick second, a coffee break, but your reputation, the connections that you build throughout this time that you have this access and this platform can carry you much further if you play those cards right. So first of all, I think even if you're not a new athlete, or somebody just drafted or whatever, even if you're somebody who maybe has had a few years in, but you haven't had someone over your public relations affairs and things of that nature, should first of all be looking for somebody who's not a yes man / yes woman. That's my biggest thing, because athletes are so used to being told yes, 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 yes. Oh, we'll do it. If it's because of the fact that they have the money and people just want to say yes so they can get a piece of that, or if it's because of the fact that they're just like, oh my gosh, I'm such a big fan. Yeah, sure, whatever. If you got somebody for PR who is going to be a yes man or a yes woman, that's not going to be a good person for you, because you wouldn't be hiring help, you wouldn't be hiring counsel if you could do it all yourself. If you knew best all the time, if you had all these skills to do this yourself, then there would be no point in having someone to support or partner with. So you need someone who's going to be able to say, I know you want to go there, but that organization has been under fire lately, and I don't think it's a good look for you to be tied into what they have going on right now. Or I know you're friends with this person, but I don't think it's the best thing for you to be posting XYZ elemental P about them, because right now they're really in the middle of a legal battle that doesn't really look that great. It's not really good in their favor. You have stakeholders that are investing in you and this, and that, who may be offended by that. There are always ways to, talk about things, and by no means am I suggesting that just because you're someone's publicist and you give them advice that they have to listen every time, or I'm just going to drop them as a client. I don't mean that. But I mean in situations that are really reputation heavy, that there's a real, this can make or break. This can be something that, really resonates, makes news cycles, makes waves and things like that. Because then if you don't take my counsel, and sometimes we're all human, we can get it wrong. But if you don't take my counsel and then you also want me to clean it up, again, it's going back to, my reputation, and that's my strongest asset as what I do as a reputation manager. Is people expect for it to be managed. It doesn't mean that if you have a publicist or a great PR team that you'll never, come under fire or anything like that, because we know the internet is no one's friend. That's the second thing I would want. New athletes, people new to that PR space, whatever, new on a platform. The internet is not your friend. I don't care how much
the internet is not your friend.
I don't care how much they love you. I don't care how much your song is popping right now. I don't care how much everybody posting your viral video. They're not your friend.
Yeah.
They're, what we call them, associates. They're your associate,
not the associates.
But that's it. Yeah. Because they're with you right now until somebody makes you look stupid. Until somebody has a rumor that's big enough or nice enough for somebody to believe, and then they're not your friend.
That's such an interesting concept of people building a person up, building them all the way up just to tear them down, just to pull them down. Why do you think that is?
I mean, honestly, the best explanation I can come up with is maybe the fact that that's kind of like the dynamic, right? Like there's these celebrities, these people who are, above normal society, and we can't resonate with them per se, or they have different access than us. So we kind of like look up at them, and us regular people, or regular people in the world who have to, work hard for everything that they get, and they don't have this access to just this generational wealth at their fingertips. A lot of people are resentful of that, like, hey, I'm not going to give this guy a break when he's dropping balls or fumbling passes, and he's getting paid XYZ amount, and I wouldn't have to work for 45 years to see that amount of money.
Yeah.
And although I love cheering for this people or this team, like I'm going to jump at my first chance to criticize you because what you're wearing right now is my salary for a year. And I'm not saying that everybody does it just because they're jealous. I don't want to, push that narrative, but I'm saying that I think that's one reason, a contributing factor to why, once there is something to talk about, people can take it and run with it, because it's just kind of like, listen, you got one job. Throw a ball or do whatever it is that you do, and do it well. Don't complain to us. There are people, I'm not saying I agree with this, but there are many people who have this feeling that's like, don't complain to us about, just the technicalities or the difficulties of you really playing a kid's game for a king's ransom.
Yeah.
And that part I do understand with and can resonate with, because you, in major city that you live in, I live in Atlanta. You ride down the street all the time, you see people, with signs saying, please help. Or I think I saw a man yesterday or the other day that was like, had a sign that's like, I won't steal to eat or whatever. And that was like heartbreaking. I had a couple like snacks I gave him because I just had it in my car. But there are people who have real life problems. And just, last night, right, the Lions Chiefs game was on, and that they were saying that that was Patrick Mahomes' first week one loss in his whole career, and I couldn't hear his post game interview at the time, but I could see he was a little frustrated and stuff like that. And of course, that's his career. That's what the people on the regular, if you will, are us normal folks, may not think about the fact that, yes, they're upset and you think it's a kid's game, but that's their career, just like your career. Yep. That is just like you're serious about your job, they're serious about theirs. It's not their fault that theirs just pays a lot more.
For a lot of people, I wonder if they'd be able to perform in their normal jobs if they had the scrutiny that a lot of these public figures had in their careers. Like,
that's
imagine like Beyonce,
point.
She's in a concert stadium, she has thousands of people, and she's at work.
Yeah,
that's her job.
Yes.
So imagine like you are at your job and you got a whole bunch of people just like scrutinizing you and pointing out all of your shortcomings and flaws.
And to the athlete's point, that's what can be so difficult for them, because they still bleed red just like us. They're human beings, and when people are online trolling them about or being invasive, like finding out things about personal information about their families and just bringing up things that they heard that you don't even know if this is triggering to them or anything like that. That's a lot to take. And it's like, yeah, I'm getting paid a lot of money, but it's like, do I have to take this? But then, it just goes back and forth, because then it's like, heavy is the head that wears the crown, but it's a lot. And my whole point, even I just want to finish this thought, like of bringing up the whole thing with Patrick Mahomes, is not that he couldn't be upset. It's just that I think that people should, again, have that more perspective, like we just said, about the fact that this is their job and it's a very scrutinized job. And then also some celebrities, some athletes can stand to take a piece of humble pie and realize that, yes, you're gifted and you're among a small percentage of people who could do what you do, and that's great. But you are, being paid a king's ransom to play a kid's game. And there are people out here who are really struggling. Yeah.
I mean, that entire concept of building people up to pull them down. I was actually listening to a different podcast earlier today, and it was talking about the feeling of envy. So what it was saying was pretty much that the people who know you the best a lot of times wish the worst for you, because you both started off in the same place, right? And then as you start to become more successful, or maybe just to build towards like your purpose, you plant your flag in the ground and saying, this is my purpose, this is what I want to move to, as you start to see that success, you cast a shadow because you're starting to stand out. And that shadow is over the people who started at the same place, but maybe they aren't facing like their own demons or their own insecurities to get to that point. So it's like, oh, you started where I started. So I don't like, I don't like that you got there. And so I think that's such an interesting concept, and hopefully people understand. And going back to what you said about having that positive self-talk of saying, why can't I do this? Why can't I make that choice? I think it all comes down to making a choice about who you want to be, what your purpose is, how you want to bring value to the world.
I agree with that. But I'm also realizing, just as I have more like, talks with friends and just like, looking at life from a different perspective and a different lens, that you and I sitting here I agree with you, but we might be speaking from a privileged perspective and not even realizing it, because we've had parents who have poured into us that you can overcome, be resilient, all these positive things.
It's like Donda West to Kanye, like tell him he could be anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is that irrational confidence that he has is something that, maybe it's,
is that the worst case scenario of having like too much confidence in yourself?
I'm gonna say no comment, which is a comment I actually hate
in the
PR world, but I'm just like,
fair.
God bless him.
That's
But
fair.
but I want to say, and for the record, no comment is still a comment. I want people to know that. But anyway, we could be speaking from that, because that thought I had in my head is saying, oh, well, why can't I meet someone from ESPN? Yeah, I had the thought, right? Sure, but it would be very prideful of me to say, well, I picked myself up by my bootstraps. So I made this choice. Yeah, I did it. I mean, we all have free will, and of course I did it. But that thought, the seeds to even make me form that thought were planted way before I was 19 and had it. It was from my parents putting into me that, yes, you can. Yes, you have access. You will be great. All these things. But what if it was the exact opposite? What if they told me I'll never be anything? What if they never helped me out? What if they said you are only good enough to just barely get in this school, and you better just hope that you just get C's, and hopefully, would I have ever had that thought? So,
so based off of all that, well, sorry, I don't want to cut off your thought.
No. I was just my point was that what you said about envy and like, people, yes, that other person might not be where the person that's making that shadow is, but it might be also easy to say that the person that's left behind can just make the choice to be better.
Got you. Okay, that's like the idea of meritocracy, pretty much, when there is some kind of misleveling, like someone has some kind of advantage.
Right.
Maybe it's not financial, but maybe it's like emotional.
It
having
could
an emotional
be mentally,
advantage.
anything. Yeah. I mean, going back to what we were just talking about, you have siblings. I just said that. My sister and I grew up in the same house, but that doesn't mean that we have the same things within us.
Right.
Right. So it's just, that's just life.
So where I wanted to go with this, speaking of siblings, was sort of siblings, but it's like you talked about motherhood and you talked about the values of instilling that you can do it versus like the opposite side of things. I'm curious, what are the lessons that you want to impart into your son?
Oh man, I mean, I've only just begun. I feel like I've been on this mom journey for like ever. It feels like a long time, but I'm only 4.5 years in, so I'm just really I'm really getting into parenting now. When you have a baby, like pregnancy and having a newborn, that is like glorified babysitting. That is, your job is to make sure that they don't die. Feed them, change them, make sure.
That's very direct. That's to the point.
That's pretty much the bottom line. Feed them, make sure they don't die. And also, I mean, of course, you want to nurture. Like, I really believe that my son is such a happy kid now because my mom was around for him like pretty much every day when he was a baby, and just really like giving him real nurturing and love. He didn't, go to a daycare at 6 weeks where there's people who don't really know him and care about him every single day that was taking care of him. So I really do believe that. But still, even with her giving him that love and like, just watching him, she was still just glorified babysitting. Now he's 4. He can talk. He can walk. We are now getting into parenting. The school he goes to has to matter. The kids that he hangs around with matters now. The things that he does at the park, who is watching him. Those things are real choices about his life have to be made now. Not just, did I get him diapers? Did he have a bottle today? Those are just the basics. And so there are so many things that I, want for him and want him to have. But there are so many things that I really feel like being a parent is truly a big test of faith, because I prayed for him to be this certain ways and have certain things in him. And many of the prayers that I prayed when he was still in the womb had came to fruition. I'm just like, wow, God, that's crazy. But so many things were just like, oh my God, how could this happen, Lord? I never even saw this coming. And it just really like, being his parent is just a constant reminder that I'm not in control here. I'm not in control here. I was giving him, I'm borrowing him from God. That's it. And it's just my job to try to do the best that I can with him. But he's not mine.
That's beautiful.
That's all I can really like embrace. And so like even with my son, he like to the point of, what lessons do you want to teach? And to the point of, I'm not in control here. He was born without all 10 fingers. I have no control over that. Can't go back and fix it. There's no procedure I can do to give him that finger. It's just going to be that way. He's going to be like that for the rest of his life. But what I can do as his guardian, as the person that was blessed to be able to watch over him on this earth, is teach him, you can do anything. This does not stop you from doing anything that you want to do. And in many ways, he's taught me that. There are other things that he struggled with or whatever. And, those things are like a thing of the past now. And he constantly shows me I can do anything. Those prayers that you're praying are working. So I just try to do the best that I can within my control. And I literally try not to lose sleep over worrying about things that are not.
Yeah. Damn. That's beautiful. I'm very interested about your vision for his possibilities, like his opportunities. And because I don't want to say, as a parent, you'd want him to be in a specific career or to do something specific in their life. I remember listening to something that Will Smith said, and disregard however you feel about Will Smith.
Well, I love him, so I'm so sorry. Unless there's some kind of recent news that I don't know about. But
no, this is not recent, and it's not negative. It's actually positive. But pretty much he pretty much said that his most demanding yet rewarding relationship was the relationship that he had with his daughter Willow. And he said he realized that when you plant a seed, your job, as you're saying, is to water that seed. And you can't demand that seed to grow to be the plant that you want it to grow to. It's something ingrained within itself that it's going to become the plant that it was supposed to become.
Absolutely.
And so your only job is to just water that plant and let it become who and what it is meant to become. So when you said all of that, like that's exactly what it reminded me of.
No, that's such a beautiful analogy, because I think that it's very true. And again, I'm so new into the parenting thing. Like I could be saying this and then watch this 4 years from now, and I'm like trying to, have a whole different perspective, where I'm trying to control things in my son's life. And I'm like, girl, what happened to relaxing?
Yeah.
So but I just pray that I keep, this mentality. And I really, like I said, I don't know how I could be a parent or be the parent that parent that I'm proud of, at least, without having my faith, because it's truly way too much in parenthood that's out of your control. So if you obsess over trying to control it all, you'll go nuts. It's just not possible. You have to chalk it up to the fact that somebody else is pulling the strings. You're just asking for permission. Again, like I said every time, but he is his own, individual. I don't ever want to put anything on him. I always want to, the only things that I want to put into him is being a respectable, good person, being a person that, raising him up to be a child of God, raising him up to be somebody who is, thoughtful, who is a productive member of society. Those things I'm not gonna waver on. I will fight as long until I'm done trying to put that into him if that's what it ever took. But what he wants to do, as far as if he wants to be in communications, if he wants to be a reporter, if he wants to be an athlete, if he wants to be an astronaut, which is what he thinks he wants to be now, whatever it is.
That is hilarious.
Yeah.
My nephew actually wants to be a pilot right now.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just like, okay, we're going to write this down at 4. Let's see what happens at 14.
Right.
But if you want to still be an astronaut at 14, it's fine.
Right.
They're just like, this is something that, this is one of those things that is like, oh, it's a cliche, but it's not. But it's extremely true. And it's also something that you will never, ever, ever, ever really get. Like I was talking to you offline about the difference between empathy and sympathy. You'll never really get this until you actually become a parent. But there truly is no handbook. Like I know you've heard that before. Everybody's heard that. Oh, there's no handbook to this parenting thing. But you don't get what they mean until you're doing it. And you're like, who's going to help me? Well, how do I look? Oh my gosh, nobody knows. I can't look this up. No, you can't look it up. You just have to go with whatever it feels like and keep adjusting on the job training.
Yeah.
Figure out as you go. Okay, that didn't work. Maybe we need to adjust. Maybe we need to adjust and measure and adjust. Figure this thing out. And I also am very accepting of the fact that no matter how hard I try, no matter how much I say, oh, I'll just let God take care of it and I'm not in control. My son is probably going to go to therapy one day as an adult, and it's probably something that I or his dad would have done that will come up. We're not going to get it all right. Mm-hmm. It's something that he's going to have to unlearn that we taught him that is not going to be healthy or productive for him when he becomes an adult. That's okay.
Right. So with all that said, and I think that maybe this applies to women who haven't had children yet and are wanting to have children, all the things that you listed, those seem to be challenging and difficult. I'm curious, how do you balance the reward of being a mother? Like, what do you appreciate the most because of being a mother?
That's a great question. A lot of times I find, I was just talking to someone about this, that when you get around like a small group of like parents that are like away maybe for a minute and they're not with their kids and they're talking to people who don't have kids, it seems like all we do is complain. Like, oh, I'm so glad I don't have to like make lunch right now, or stuff like that. And you make this experience sound so bad. Like you spend 10 minutes being like, yeah, and then they want to ask you, oh, can I have some of your food? And all the things that they do that's so annoying. And at the end, you're like, but it's really great. You should do it. It's like, who believes that this is really great when you just spent 15 minutes talking about how annoying this kid is? But it truly is.
Yeah.
Like I don't want I did not write the script of how my life went with, my son coming into it and everything after. I wouldn't have written it that way. However, I don't want any version of a script of my life now at 30 where he's not in it. He is literally proof to me, walking proof that prayers work. He is, just having that, it was worth it enough. Just someone that truly, like, no matter, he doesn't know what I deal with when I'm working. He doesn't know, the life issues or how I'm, pulling strings, being like, okay, well, this is what he needs, so let me try to figure out how I'm going to get this, together, whatever, blah, blah, blah. He doesn't know all that, but he'll still just come to me, I love you so much, mommy, because he does, and
that's an unconditional love.
You need that, absolutely. Yeah. He doesn't know, he doesn't care, he loves anyway. Even if I was not giving him his favorite toy or I didn't give him, a sweet that he asked, but I was really being a good boy. Okay, but we're not having any more sweets, but he's still going to love me. And all parents that are doing their best by their children, I think that's really just one of, like, if nothing else, that's the thing that makes it all, like, just makes it all so worth it. Like, we were like, oh, I can't wait for bedtime. And then when bedtime comes, you just spend time thinking about your kid. Like, I've looked at pictures of, like, he and I, like, all the time. After I put him to bed, I'm like, whew, okay, I'm off work. And then I just go to my phone and I'm like, oh, look at this picture of us. Yeah,
so speaking of that, like, what has been your favorite, so if you were to bucket, like, the age ranges, you said he's 4, So maybe like when he was a newborn versus a 2-year-old, what has been like your favorite parts of the age, and then what have been, we'll start with the most challenging and then go your most favorite parts.
Oh, definitely it's in reverse order.
Okay.
Right now is the best time for me. Right now, yes, I am parenting, and that's much more difficult than the glorified babysitting as far as the gravity of the choices you're making. But I love it because he can have conversations with me. He blows my mind. You know, like things that he says back to me, I'm like, you know what that means? Like, just it's literally
I don't
like
remember
having
being
a friend.
that
No,
smart at
they're
4 years old.
way smarter than us. They're way smarter than us.
They are.
Like I was, a gifted child, sure, but I'm like, baby, I look like an imbecile compared to you.
Yeah, that kid gonna be skipping
Like
grades.
seriously, I'm like, what are you saying right now? And so this has definitely been my favorite part so far. This like year 4 has been the best. As far as having a relationship with him, definitely. I is the reason why he is a solo child, because newborn phase was like enough for me to be like, I never want to do this again. Like pregnancy really wasn't that bad. He was a pretty easy pregnancy minus like the first maybe 12 weeks or whatnot. But it was just the newborn phase required so much, and I really feel like it could have been different, and different people may say different things. I think one thing that's really good to have if you're like expecting or if you ever want to have a kid is have a real like communication about the dynamic that'll happen between you and your partner when the baby comes, like what those roles are, what support looks like, and a safe environment and an open environment for like what when I need to voice that I need support or whatever, just kind of that dynamic, because everybody's tired. So they're not being their best self.
Everybody's sick and tired of being sick and
like,
tired.
Like seriously, I have not slept, so I don't want to hear it from you, and it's understandable.
Right.
But it's still like everybody needs support at that time. So definitely the newborn phase was the most difficult, just because I think mainly because of the sleep deprivation and because they need you for so much. They can't do anything on their own. Can't bathe, eat, sleep, nothing. Now, my son, I can make him the food and he can feed himself. I don't have to sit there and I'm starving, but I got to make sure that you're fed, and now I can eat even though my stomach is touching my back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we can eat at the same time. So it's pick your poison, because now, he needs me for less. But first of all, you're going to miss the days when they needed you for more, first of all. But secondly, he needs me for less, but there's more risk. He's open to more things. He knows he can walk out of a front door, or somebody can, just all the things that come with that, the decisions you have to make on their behalf now that they are really just, continuing to get older. So it's no one part that's so much better than the other, but I'm never rushing to do that newborn phase again.
It sounds like motherhood is just a process of letting go, in a sense, like gradually letting go. Like you love this thing so much, but then you have to love it enough to let it go.
Absolutely. And I would say that my mom, I would give her credit for that, because my mom was not a strict mom, but at the same time, she wasn't one of those ones that's like, oh, well, you could go out with your friends and you in high school and you could be out till 2:00 and it's okay. No. Like, I'm not saying I never did it, but she didn't know. And I really like used to be frustrated with that, because a lot of my other friends, their parents were a little bit like more forgiving and a little more cool, if you will, back then. And I was like, oh, I wish my mom wouldn't be like this. But first of all, I'm grateful that she was. And secondly, truly, when I did go off to college, she let go. It wasn't like, oh, I'm at college, but she's calling me every day like, oh, what you doing? Who you hanging around? Blah, blah, blah. She really, this is the end of the road, my friend. Like, I'm here for you for everything till I take my last breath. But you're going to have to fall on your face. You have to learn for yourself. I'm going to have to trust that I put enough in you in these 17 years that you're not going to get out here and act like you don't have any home training. I got to let go. And I appreciated that, and I want to mimic that, with my son for sure. But that's a nice, beautiful way that you kind of analyze that, because it's true. Like, you spend so much time during pregnancy, like forming this child, and from the minute that they're here, it's just a gradual process of letting them go. But they say the the days go by slow, but the years go by fast, and that's so true. Because I mean, he'll be 5 in January, and I'm already like, that is crazy because that's halfway to 10, and I just remember having you like 5 weeks ago, so that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. That's beautiful. So making a transition, I know that because you said that you love your son, obviously, and another thing that you love is DST.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk about this.
Little shout out.
Let's talk about the sisterhood real quick.
Shout out.
Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated. Let's
Yes.
talk about what, and whatever you can say, like, you know, like what was the journey and the decision to join Delta, and then what has been the most value and the lessons that you've learned from being in your sisterhood?
You know, I've been saying this phrase a lot lately, and not about Delta, but it's really applicable to the question that you've asked, that life is lived forward but best understood backwards. And that is so applicable to the question you just asked, because first of all, I was interested in Delta because I had just grown up and just seeing like different Black women in my church or community, like kind of just being the bold ones that were stepping up and doing things and just making a difference and just walking with this like essence and just this confidence that I was attracted to. And a lot of them were Delta women, and it was just really had an influence on me. So that's what piqued my interest in even joining. And then of course I did my own research to figure out, hey, what is this organization really about? What do they really stand for? And, you know, what is their reputation? I guess that was already in me before I really even manifested it, and things like that. And so that's how I ended up on the path to just, you know, eventually pledging in college and eventually meeting you and all those things. But what I've taken away from it is the part that I'm talking about, being lived forward but understood backwards. Because to be honest, you know, when we were in college, I think we took our relationship, our dynamic for granted. Like, yeah, we were there for each other because that's what line sisters do. But we were there for, I mean, we couldn't have got through the process without each other, of course, right? But then after you get off, you don't need each other.
Sands.
Oh my gosh. After you get off, you don't need each other in that same way. Of course, you still, you know, you hang with them a lot.
It's
you
all
got
symbolic.
chapter. But yeah, but that part of needing each other literally to cross this line, that part we didn't, you know, it wasn't as, the weight of it wasn't as heavy. And we were young. So, you know, there's not a lot of patience in, you know, young women like at that time. So, you know how girls are. You get into, you disagree about something, and then, you know, it's like, oh, well, I'm upset about that, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, you tend not to look at things from the perspective that you should. So while we had, you know, great times, we always were there for each other and everything like that, we really took the proximity of just being in the same city and everything like that for granted. Now that we're older and we lean on each other so much, we wish that we had time to be just, oh girl, I'm coming to your house, I'm 5 minutes away, like we used to be able to have.
That's such a lost thing, to
Such
just be able to pop over to somebody's house.
I mean, if Stephanie would have never got married, it would have been, me coming here would have been 2 years since I've seen Sakina in person. So that just wraps it up for you right there. You know, that's just how life ends up working. And so I didn't ever imagine when we all got together, I didn't ever imagine all the trials that we had to go through to get to cross and all stuff like that. I didn't ever imagine that they would be such pillars in my life 10 years later, because we're approaching 10 years now. Sure, we know we're line sisters for life. Yeah, that's cool to say, but there are a lot of lines out there where it's like, okay, yeah, we're line sisters on paper, but I don't even talk to them anymore, blah, blah, blah. Like, that was my college thing, and that's not my life now. No, those are my real life sisters. Like, my sister, Keisha, is my OG, my first best friend. Nobody could take her place. But they're right behind her, because they have literally been with me through every phase, truly, pretty much, of adulthood that matters. You know, and I would not have, you know, it's not just about the strolling and the, oh girl, happy Founders Day. It's about, I am struggling. I am not going to make it. I am crying. I can't stop. And I still got your back. I'm still here. I'm going to make a way. I'm going to figure out how to help you. I'm going to figure out how to pray for you. I'm going to do whatever that I can. I would not be, I could credit my upbringing. I could credit, that thought in my head that said, oh, well, why can't you meet this person? I can credit all of these different things, but I would not be who I am sitting in this chair today without this organization and those 12 ladies. For sure not.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So just to wrap up our conversation, I stumbled on this video of, I don't know if you know who Mr. Beast is.
I don't.
A huge YouTube personality.
Okay.
But literally he blew up over, I think maybe 5 to 7 years. Like he just expanded exponentially. And going back to what you were saying about having that self-talk and telling yourself, like, I should believe in this thing that I'm trying to accomplish. So literally Mr. Beast, before he blew up, like when he first started, similar to how this podcast is episode number 2, he created like this digital, what do you call it? What is the word I'm looking for? A digital time capsule. So like he pretty much left a message to himself, and he's like, he left it unpublished and for it to publish in 5 years, so that he left a message to himself so that when you're looking at it 5 years from now, like that's the message that you're leaving to yourself. And so I'm asking you, if you were to look at Jazmyne 20 years from now, and if you wanted to say a message to her, what would you say to her about everything that you've experienced?
20 years from now? So
20 years from now.
50? Oh.
What would you tell her? What would you tell Jazmyne in, what are we, 2023? 2073.
So... Nah.
Oh, not 50. No, not 50
nah,
years. 20 years. 20 years. 20 years. Sorry. I'm giving you. I'm giving you two.
Okay,
I'm putting too much sauce on the years.
Okay, so 2043.
2043.
Okay, but still, am I saying what? Because here, I need clarity.
Mm-hmm.
Am I saying something like to my 50-year-old self, like what I hope for my 50-year-old self? Like if you're listening to this 50-year-old,
what do you hope for the next 20 years?
Okay, so okay, got you. So
or any kind of message, like just this time capsule of how you're feeling right now in this moment.
Well, okay, I can say that at this time, I'm proud of you, and I hope that whenever you hear this message that you are still proud of this version of me, because it took a lot. It took a lot, it took a lot of unlearning. It took a lot of courage to even just get here. And this is just the beginning. This is scratching the surface. I know that your version, you listening in 2043, is probably beyond anything I could even think or imagine. I know you have and are still impacting so many people's lives, and I know you're loved by many, but most loved by yourself and God. And so that's something I never want to change. But I hope that you are proud of the turning point that we made at 30, and that you are glad that we chose to be bold, and that the dreams of the little girl who would play basketball in your dad's like driveway by yourself and just have this passion for sports that never died, that you're still doing that today, and you're still making an impact with the gifts that God gave you to be able to communicate, and the passion that he gave you for athletics, that you're still helping people, because truly that's what it's all about. When I said that I wanted to get into psychology because I wanted to help people, that's exactly what I do as a publicist. I'm just helping people with the way that they communicate to the people who they care about, the people who are stakeholders in their lives. And I hope that not only are you helping athletes that way, but you're helping people 20 years younger than you in that way. I hope that you're still thinking about the 30-year-olds who want to be where you are at 50 now, and pouring into them, giving them a hand up, not safeguarding, secrets and everything like that. Just being a resource and being a light and an inspiration, having generosity in your heart for those people, that if nobody ever, if nothing ever, comes of your name beyond that, I hope that it's still a name that is generous. I hope that it's still a name that is thoughtful. I hope that it's still a name that is genuine. And I hope that it's a name that love pours in and pours out of. Yeah.
Wow. You about to make me tear.
I'm literally like thinking, I'm imagining this person too. And I'm like, I'm getting kind of like, kind of emotional. I'm just like, wow, like that's a thought, to think that far in advance, and it seems like it's so far away, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's all I have for now.
Okay.
Unless is there anything?
No.
Oh,
what?
Let's continue the conversation about the favorite athletes.
Okay.
So you said your favorite athlete is?
Oh, I didn't know.
The greatest of all time. The greatest athlete of all time.
And that's why I said MJ. I'm gonna. I'm saying this out of.
Is that a controversial statement, or is that like the common statement, and then other people are like, oh, LeBron or other people?
I think it's acceptable. It's acceptable to say LeBron. I'm not saying it's not. Like, okay. I think maybe there was a time, like maybe, I don't know, maybe 6 years ago, where it was still kind of like, I don't know if it's still, as acceptable or whatever. But I think it's definitely acceptable. The only reason that I love LeBron way more than I love Michael Jordan, like, because I'm always gonna respect him for not. Let's just start with the man that he is, for the community, for the game, for for society. That's enough to put a period. Forget whatever he's done on the court. Just start with the role model that he is, for where he's come from and what he's made of his business, his family, his just the things that put on his shoulders that he didn't even ask for, and he's still worn them with grace. So that's enough. But then on top of that, I'm always gonna love him because I'm a Heat fan till I die, and that's
Lauderdale. That's the Lauderdale. Lauderdale.
So like, come on. Look, it was what is it? West Palm Beach.
Okay.
Wade County. And LeBroward County.
LeBroward County. There it is.
So I mean, the Heatles' time was a time to be alive.
Hey.
So if he only gave us those 4, that was enough for me. Like, you gonna have my respect forever.
Right.
But the only reason that I don't say him is just because of the fact that I'm not even a big like ring counter. Like, oh well, you don't have 6, so you ain't. It's not even that. It's just. I think that the way that the way that Michael Jordan just changed the game. I'm not saying that LeBron hasn't had an equal like extreme impact. It's just, I guess me personally just not ready to just say, oh. When I say it, if I change it, it got to be outright, like hands down. No, like how they do reviews now for like plays, where it's got to be indisputable evidence for them to overturn it.
Yep.
It got to be okay. It's indisputable. It's no talking about this no more. It can't.
They threw the challenge flag, and you're like,
exactly.
There's not enough evidence.
Exactly. But that's literally what it is.
Yeah.
It's like so basically, if they're neck and neck right now, which somebody could make that argument, that's still gonna be Michael Jordan gonna get it then.
Okay.
It got to be okay. He up here, you down here.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But that's just how I feel about it.
Okay. So it sounds like you're saying Jordan is the best because he changed the entire trajectory of the game. And so I feel like there's this conversation now about who's the best point guard of all time. And they're trying to say whether it's...
Are they saying
Steph Curry versus Magic Johnson.
Are they saying
So now, are you a traditionalist where you're like...
Are they saying that? Why are we such prisoners of the moment? I love Steph. Like, again, more than I love Magic. But let's be real.
Okay.
Come on. Nah, don't get me
wrong.
Let's
be real.
Don't get me wrong. He has changed the trajectory of the game.
Okay.
Like, that shot. I mean, these kids trying to shoot from their bedroom windows now. like, come on. Like,
they trying to shoot from Miami to Palm Beach.
Hello to Palm Beach.
Palm Beach, my bad.
But I mean, still, even with all of that, I'm again, this is same challenge flag type of mentality. It got to be in dispute. And right now, I just because Magic.
Wait, which side? You're
I'm
arguing?
on the Magic side. Well, I'm not even gonna say I'm on the Magic side. I'm just gonna say that I'm not ready to say that Steph is the best point guard of all time. That's what I'm gonna say.
Okay, that's fair.
That's basically what I'm saying. But again, if those are the only two options, I'm just saying that to me it's got to be, and maybe I'm wrong for taking this into account, but to me it's like more than just what about just on the court. And I'm not saying that Steph don't have a huge imprint off the court, because he absolutely does. But I'm just saying that Magic is a mogul. This man owns multiple teams.
So it seems like for you, what weighs heavier is their presence off the court.
It's the legacy.
Because legacy. It seems like you performing well at basketball is table stakes. Like anyone can perform well. That's what it seems like you're saying.
Or all of them bring the equal thing. They all four of them.
So they maxed out on basketball. So now we have to compare them.
They all got that. So what else do you have?
Right.
Because
what else do you bring to the table?
I was just about to say that. We want to know. Just asking. What you bringing?
What are you bringing?
What you bringing? Sprinkle.
That was good.
It's the truth. It's the truth. My favorite is always going to be D-Wade forever and ever. And that's just in the period.
Yeah, D-Wade is such a great example. He's such a big role model.
Yeah.
And I know that he has PR and like he has an entire team. I'm curious, like, just you talked about LeBron being a pillar in the community. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the way that Dwayne Wade was able to transition into his post-basketball career.
Love it for him. And I think he did it the right way, because this didn't start like, oh, I'm retiring now, let me see how people love me in other ways. He's been building a brand outside of basketball for the longest. Father First with his book, and how, his big role about, how much being a father meant to him way before in his prime. That was being touted in his prime. Again, his truths. So it's not like D-Wade has been without bad press. D-Wade had a baby on Gabby. Hello, everybody don't know about it. Like, I mean, it resurfaced when her book came back out, but like that came and went. You know why? Because so many other truths were true that we all were like, well, maybe there's more to the story, or well, even if that's true, he's still a good guy, or he's a great dad, blah, blah, blah. If we didn't have anything to go on, or moreover, if most of what we had to go on was shaky, neutral, negative things, we'd be like, oh, what a creep, what all these things. People forget about that even happening. And I don't mean that to, be messy or bring up dirty laundry, but it's just an example of the fact that an athlete doesn't have to be perfect. Their record doesn't have to be without blemish to prove that reputation management still works. That it was just a case in point. And yeah, like he built his brand. I mean, with the brand that he built in China, and the Way of Wade brand that he started building years ago. All of those things went to him even having the opportunity to have the platforms that he does have as a retired player. With him now being a owner in the Jazz, and him having the spot that he had on TNT, and all those things because of the fact that he built a brand way before his playing days were over. That's what you're supposed to do.
Right. So we're talking a lot about all these celebrities, and I think as a result, they have no choice but to manage their public image. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts for regular people who they don't have as much scrutiny, but how can they apply public relations and reputation management in this age of social media and perceptions? How can the normal person who's not a celebrity, but you still have an image that you're portraying, how should they be thinking about that?
That's a great question. And it's not, the advice I would give, honestly, is not too different than what I would tell to people of a bigger platform. First of all, one of the biggest things that I say when I'm talking about media training or anything like that with like athletes or whatever is, would you want what you just posted blown up on your office boardroom when you walk into work on Monday? So if you would be ashamed, you should think twice. That's if I can't, I mean, there are a lot of other nuances, a lot of other smaller things, but if I could say one thing, then that's what it would be. If you would be ashamed, because it's a chance that it could. Now, some people don't work in jobs where their reputation even matters to their job. Like they may work somewhere like, I don't know, let's say Kohl's. I don't know why I'm picking on Kohl's.
Kohl's is nice.
Yeah, Kohl's is nice. Not bad, but
they got nice shirts.
If somebody came into Kohl's And I worked there. And a shopper said, "Look at this girl who's behind the jewelry counter. I see her on her social media. She was smoking hookah." And they show every person that walks in, and they show my manager. What you think is gonna happen to me? Nothing, because hookah is not illegal. And who cares about me smoking hookah when they got about this merchandise in Kohl's? But like nobody cares. But
just the person like putting yourself in their shoes, and what are they trying to accomplish?
yeah, like, ooh, you see her? Look at her. Do you see the smoke is coming out of her mouth? She even put out her nose. Like, who cares, right? Who really cares? But if I am the publicist to a for a nonprofit organization that of a religious-based nonprofit organization, and we're about to go into a board meeting, and every board member that's coming in, you're saying, look at the PR person. She was smoking hookah. Well, some religious people don't, believe that that's something, right? Mm-hmm. So it matters. So again, it's not that you can't live your life, but the problem is that people think they think by this: if a tree falls in the forest and nobody's there to hear it, did it really fall mentality? Mm-hmm. Just because you didn't post it doesn't mean it didn't happen. So you don't have to post it. Okay, yes, I went to a hookah bar with my friend. That doesn't mean that I didn't go just because I didn't take a picture and post it on my story. It's okay. I also can just go and it not be captured. What a novel idea.
Damn.
Like, so
you're saying it's okay to keep the video in the camera roll.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You don't.
What a novel idea to just show like your friends when you see them, or text it to your like actual close friends. Like, oh guys, look where I went. That's again.
You don't need to broadcast everything.
What? You don't need to. Say it again for the people in the back.
You don't need to broadcast everything.
You just don't. And therein lies the problem. Yeah. Like that's just what it is. If you would be ashamed, and maybe like I said, if you work somewhere where you're like, oh, I don't care. But if you have aspirations to, like, even me, it's certain things that people, I follow obviously a lot of sports channels. I may see people tweet certain things about an athlete or an organization or something like that. I may agree with what they're saying, but I may not like it because I may not like the tweet because maybe I might work with that athlete one day. I may agree with what they're saying, but I don't need to burn that bridge before I even build it. So I could agree with what they're saying. I could screenshot. If I think so highly of it, I could screenshot it and send it to a friend. Be like, look what they said. I agree with this, and I can have a whole conversation. But I don't have to like it. It don't have to be public information that I resonate with, and I have an opinion one way or the other about this topic. That would be my biggest thing.
Yeah, I think that'll help a lot of people.
I hope so.
Help a lot of people.
If I have done my public service today, then I feel better about it.
This has been a whirlwind of a conversation. And I think that everything that I said in the beginning, as far as you having an interesting perspective and such confidence and assurance in what you believe in, like, I feel like a lot of people strive to have that much confidence in themselves and what they believe in. And so it's honestly been a pleasure and an honor to like just have an extended conversation in a time where there's all these surface level conversations, but to have like a really deep conversation is very enriching.
Yeah. And I appreciate that. I too have really enjoyed this conversation. We ran the gamut: sports, life, all the things. And I
Jordan,
love that.
Magic Johnson,
career, shooting from your bedroom window.
Right.
But wait, that sounds weird if you don't know the context. I mean, shooting a basketball. You're gonna have to watch. Well,
at this point, they've already watched.
Hopefully, you saw that part.
Exactly. Unless they skip forward.
But I wanted to say, because I did say at the very beginning, I would circle back to what you said about the confidence and stuff. And what I wanted to say is just that that's not really true. I don't always have it together, but I feel like something that I say often. That Vanessa always reminds me of: as the facts change, so can my opinion. I got what I have now. I'm gonna do the best with what I have in front of me. And then if things change, then I can adapt. But I don't, and I won't always make the right choices. I haven't always made choices out of pure confidence in myself. I've made some choices truly out of fear. But I think what I want anybody listening to know is that that's okay. Forgive yourself. Be kinder to yourself. Sometimes we get it wrong sometimes. That's all right. You still have it. Any day you're still breathing, you still have a chance to get it right. You can try again. Like, it's all right. So I appreciate and am glad to hear that it, comes off that, hey, I'm assured of myself and I've got it all together. And because I'm not faking it, I try to be as confident as I can in what I'm doing. But in truth, I don't always know. In truth, I don't always get it right. In truth, I may be speaking into a hot mic and loud and wrong, and I realized that 6 months later. But as the facts change, so can my opinion.
And with that, thank you,
Absolutely.
Jazmyne. Thank you
for
very
having
much.
me.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Wow.
That was so much fun, though.
Yes. Yeah.